Here we go.
Welcome to the On The Slab Horror Show with your two hosts, Ian Dynamo Kelly and Carl Kingwoe. This is episode number 2, and as you may be able to tell from that beautiful little collectible that Carl has right in front of his beautiful face, actually, we've got Halloween this week. We mentioned it at the end of last week's show that we were going to be covering both of our favorite films of all time, I think, in any genre. And I think there was only one place to start, and that was going to be 1978, the 1978 classic.
Yeah, where it all began. In
my opinion, the greatest to ever do it, John Carpenter. Movie co-written and co-produced. We'd be remiss to say with Deborah Hill. And of course, the superstar that they got in for this moment was the superstar of the B-horror movie, especially around the 80s, Donald Pleasence.
Donald Pleasence.
Love that man.
He's killed. He's killed.
He's such, we'll get into Donald Pleasence throughout this movie, but it's such a cracking movie because obviously Donald Pleasence, is the star of the show, and we do see the debut of the Scream Queen, the best Scream Queen, Miss Jamie Lee Curtis.
JLC.
JLC, baby. So, Carl, this is a great way to start. First of all and foremost, I suppose we should get some, get some bills paid and get some dues paid as well. This podcast is, if you want to even call it a podcast, this horror show, which I'm doing from the dungeon.
I'm doing from the pit.
It is brought to you exclusively as part of the Dynamo Podcast Network. You can only find it on YouTube in video format. As we said last week, we may look at doing audio down the line, but for the moment, this is going to be video format. Yeah. And Carl and his better half, Arlo, are doing some great work in presenting the package that you see right before your eyes, and we're very thankful for everyone that has tuned into the first episode and given us feedback on the first episode. It helps us kind of, I suppose, want to continue doing this and make each show better as we go along. So it's a hell of an idea. And don't forget to like, subscribe, Dynamo Podcast Network, please do, because we have it all laid out in beautiful packages for you in there. There's a playlist on each show, so you don't have to, go finding it. It's all there. Whatever you like, it's right there at the click of a button. But now that we have that out of the way, episode 2 begins. Mr. Kingwoe, Halloween, baby.
What a film. That's all I'm going to start off
with
that.
Ireland's own words, sound.
Yes. I mean, 78 was a strange old year. It really was. I mean, like the glory days of the kind of horrors that we like in kicked off around this time. So you're talking about what would you say, like an innovator with this film, don't forget
very much so.
The Shape. That's what Michael Myers was originally just called. It was The Shape, which I just think is cool. I think it's cool, but I mean, it's like there's almost a sense of claustrophobia and tension, serious amount of tension in this film. And again, as I've said, and I'm sure people are sick of me saying this, atmosphere. There's a real dark atmosphere in this film, and the fact that there's very little music in it during the film itself adds to the creepiness, I think, of it.
It's more of just little scores throughout it, isn't it? It's just little, like, this is all done by John Carpenter and done on a fucking extremely tight budget as well. It's kind of it shows the talent that John Carpenter has, as you said, to create atmosphere, but also to put the right music to create that atmosphere. Yeah. As you say, it's very, very dark, very claustrophobic. There is some bits that you get a little bit of breathing room, but not much. Really not much. And I think the little bits of organ and synth and piano music that John Carpenter, as he describes, just really simple shit.
Yeah.
Really adds and makes this, pretty much the standout movie of the franchise that it became. But but also one of the standout horror movies probably of all time. I mean, if it's not in any top 5,
there's something wrong with you. I mean, it kind of went off with the franchise. It went off the beaten path a little bit, and I'm sure we'll do a retrospective of each of the franchise further down the line.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
But if you're talking about iconic horror characters, he's up at the top. Michael Myers is up at the top without a shadow of a doubt.
Tippy top for me, yeah, definitely.
I mean, everyone knows I like Leatherface, but this guy he's unreal,
Well, the scary thing about this one, our previous show was about a man who gets bitten by a wolf, and obviously something very, very dark that was going on in a small town that they all knew about this and weren't really trying to stop it, that they were just terrified of it. Whereas this is this is a man who basically just has evil in him, was born kind of evil.
Yeah.
Kills his family when he's a kid,
very dark.
In his little clown suit. Beware those people that wear those clown suits.
Hey, leave the clowns out of this. In case anyone doesn't know, I used to moonlight as a clown, not a real one. I used to wear a clown outfit on stage with the band,
It was all in good fun, absolutely. No, but it was very much so kind of inspired by, the likes of Hitchcock thriller. Do you know what I mean? Psycho and stuff like that. Man in the Mask. I know even movies like Black Christmas and stuff like that. A lot of the older stuff that came before it was very much inspired by that. And John Carpenter is such a good writer. Absolutely. And also he really knows how to hire one, in a current team that you see, because this is one of the first his first mainstream one. I think it grossed 70 million at the box office as well, which is still one of the highest grossing independent movies of all time.
Some money, isn't it, though, when you think about it?
Oh, crazy, man, for 1978. But the thing about it is that this is going to be a theme within John Carpenter's work, especially all through the 80s and kind of early 90s, is that you'll notice the same kind of actors in his movies. And that's because his ability to see and get people that fit the role is absolutely perfect. And I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot of his movies on this show. That's a given. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Haddonfield, which is synonymous. It's one of those towns that is literally synonymous with horror fans now. And why don't you start us off a bit on Donald Pleasance's role in this and all that as well, and kind of...
Absolutely. He is, you would think that, funny enough, he is billed as a star, but everyone really wants to see Michael Myers, but the absolute power of that man on screen is phenomenal. Even he's not even that big of a man. It's just, you can tell that.
Here's a question when you watch this movie, right? Maybe we'll use your format last week, because I think that was good. Let's take ourselves back to when we first watched the movie, right? And it's staying in line with the question I'm about to ask you about Donald Pleasance. Do you find that he's the only man in this movie that gives you a little bit of comfort at times? You almost feel safe when he's on screen, right? Especially as a kid.
It's from his voice to his outfit that he's wearing. He looks and sounds safe. He's
trustworthy.
He's the only person in this film that can save you.
Yeah.
Because he knows Michael Myers so well, and inside out and every which way but loose, That man was a fantastic character actor,
Samuel Loomis.
Oh, Dr. Loomis, what a name. I just love that name.
What a name.
I always loved the name Loomis. I always was mad.
Yeah, it's something about it, I don't know what it is. Samuel Loomis. It's what about the first time you saw this?
That's what I was trying to remember back. I know it would have been another night on Channel 4.
Oh yeah,
Either Channel 4 or
yeah.
BBC 2.
They were the two, weren't they? They were
Yeah.
the two.
Like that's it. Like I mean, the great. You know what I like about our kind of age group? We saw a movie like that, and it wouldn't bother us whatsoever. You know, like I mean, we'd be like, oh yeah, okay, might be a little bit scary or whatever. No, do you know what's gas? Movies like this never bothered me. Do you know what I was? Do you know what I was afraid of? I'm going off track a little bit, but it makes sense. Well, it doesn't make sense, but it does to me. Do you know what film I was afraid of when I was a kid? I wasn't afraid of horror films. I was afraid of fucking E.T.
All right, we're definitely different.
Yeah.
We're definitely different because I was terrified of this.
No, I thought it was great, and I had like that's it. I mean, you know, we're talking about the films that formulate our interest in this genre. And like the first dozen of videos, sorry about the pun there, will be films that we are very, very passionate about. Yeah. So, when I saw this film, like I say, I wasn't scared, but I felt creeped out by it. More creeped out than scared, you know. And as a young fella, I was still trying to figure out that feeling of being creeped out. So, whereas American Werewolf in London would have probably scared me a bit more because it's a lot more visceral. This is a lot more, which is what I wanted in future films, is atmospheric. It looks bleak, it looks dark, and you don't know exactly what's going on with this dude, you know. And then the fact of, you know, way at the start with the young like the young Michael Myers, you see him with the mask on and going through his, you know, his vision,
his peripheral vision from his POV. Yeah,
I mean, and then like when he is the adult Michael Myers, and you can hear him breathing through the mask. That gives you, I feel, that gives you another bit of claustrophobia there, you know.
Oh, definitely, because you're like, what's this psycho gonna do? You know what I mean? I remember exactly where I was now, like to the date on this. I first grew up, and it was mainly, like I told you, it was always in both grannies' houses. It's so funny when you think back.
They didn't give a shit like them.
all my wrestling came from my granny's houses, not necessarily the granny's show, bar the one in Bray, because that was old English wrestling. But anyway, I digress. But the one thing that I noticed was, like, I was a big horror fan, and it's funny, I have a little cousin now, Carla. Shout out to Carla, who's a massive. She's only a little young girl. She's mad into her horror now, mad into it. And it's funny enough, her mother, my auntie Sheila, she was always telling me like the scarier horror movies, you know, because she's only like 10 years older than me. So when I was 10, I think she's only 9 years older even. So when I was like 10, she was 19, like, you know what I mean? So she probably got a kick out of scaring the shit out of me. Or if I was 8, she was still younger. And I remember I was allowed, because the scariest movie I'd seen when I was really young was Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And for anyone that has never seen that,
I love that film.
For anyone that's never seen that is an amazing, and we will cover that film at some
point, right,
because that is as horror as it can be. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Unbelievable acting, Betty Davis, holy shit, and Joan Crawford. I mean, there's a TV show made on it and everything. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Real hatred that transformed onto the screen. It was just incredible. But that was the scary kind of movies that I'd seen, and I couldn't sleep. But at the same time, even though I couldn't sleep and was terrified, I had this weird, almost like self-harm thing that I wanted to be scared. You know what I mean? And but she had told me about this movie Halloween and the Friday the 13th. So I was like, okay, I need this. I need to get my hands on these. And I think I was about 11. I want to say about 11 or 12 maybe. And one Halloween, the family were having drinks in the kitchen out here in Finglas in my nanny's house, and they used to have like you remember you'll know the old Catholic houses I'm talking about, in the kind of council houses. They would have the kitchen and the sitting room would be one room, but they used to have those sliding doors that you could just separate the two if you needed to be. So the adults would be in having their drinks on Halloween and whatnot, and you know, just having the chats and smoking and all that. And we were allowed to stay out in the kitchen. And we were told, watch Halloween. You're allowed. Me and my little cousin David, he's only about a year and a half younger than me. So we were sitting there on these like hard stools, you know what I mean? Watching, eating all the shit that we had gotten, you know, trick or treating. Put out the lights. The aunties and all made it real atmospheric for us. Put out the lights on one of those old little TVs that you remember, those little boxes. Jesus. And we watched Halloween. And I mean, when I say that we were terrified, we were absolutely terrified. And I think you're 100% right. It's the atmosphere. And like every time you see the man, like you can see him in front of you now, he's just standing behind a bush and then he's gone. You know what I mean? It's like, is this all in her head? Is she, because obviously, let's get in and tell a little bit of the narrative, I suppose. Like, Laurie, you know, she's kind of a... she's kind of... Yeah, very goody two-shoes.
Whereas a lot of friends are more like their partiers and their boyfriends and all this kinds of where she's into her studies.
Yeah, she's very straight-laced, and but she's a relative of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that kind of plays out throughout the whole film. And even though you don't know it yet, you kind of get the feeling that he's trying to get whatever fucking family members are left, because he obviously escapes from the mental asylum. And Loomis, as you rightly said, is just an absolute legend and a great name, is obviously hunting him down. But he really sells the idea of how dangerous this man is, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can tell that he's even terrified of him for his own safety, you know. And that's when you have a kind of hero character like that. It's more believable, you know. I mean, the villain is believable. He really is, in a sense, because like there was I don't know if you ever heard of the New York Ripper. In real life, he had a mask not too dissimilar to this, and he was going around just killing people, and it looked freaky as hell. And if anyone hasn't seen, any of our viewers haven't seen anything about the New York Ripper, which I'm sure they have, but if they haven't, look it up. It's just freaky. Again, freaky, you know. Anyway, back to what we're talking about. Sorry, I always go off on these bloody tangents, you know.
No, that's what we're about here. That's what we're about. And to be fair, like the narrative is obviously Loomis chases him down. He escapes, but it's Halloween Eve basically, and that's where the name of the film comes from. It's great. It's just so simple.
And you know something as well, it's not there's not even that much in the film when you think about it. 2 houses.
No.
That's really it. And whatever's surrounding those houses, that's it. You know, and
like it's all in that one. The scenes are all basically either in the school, which I think there's only one time that they're in the school, in the house, on that little street.
Yeah.
And it and obviously you see Myers, and the great thing about this as well, usually the trick is that the bad man comes out at night. In this, you actually see Myers in daylight. And
I love that. I love that twist in horror films. Because anyone can make a horror film in the dark, but if you want to make a really lasting horror film, make them out in broad daylight. Not going around killing people, but just like what Michael Myers does, stalking people, looking at people. You know, like one of the best visuals for me in this film is when he's behind the bush looking out. You know that look?
Yeah.
I love that. And I'd love to get down to that area. I'd love to visit that area. You know, but like there's so many little tidbits of cool looking things, you know. We're talking about, again, briefly about the story of the film, and of course he kills his sister, and he has obviously been so, like, they don't really give any backstory about why he did this, or you know, like, did something go on in his past or whatever? No one knows really. We just see him killing his sister.
He finds Judith's tombstone missing from the cemetery as well, Loomis, which is like a bit odd, isn't it?
That was mental, yeah.
It's a bit like, what the fuck is he now? Like, what is he meant to be?
Like, I mean, they almost portray him as supernatural, you know, superhuman more so.
Yeah.
And like he said, like Loomis is saying, he's just sat there, you know, when he was in the hospital, just sat there waiting for this particular moment. and once he got that chance,
Yeah.
he was gone. You know, it's watching it again last night. I was like, this film will never get old. You know, and like, you know the way, and it still looks, it's aged well. I feel some films from those
Oh no,
times haven't.
100%. 100%. And I think like you'd have to mention our two other friends, obviously, because they're kind of central characters, Annie Brackett and Linda van der Klok.
Van der Klok.
What a Dutch
Van der
name.
Klok wants to.
But obviously Annie Brackett, like her dad is the sheriff. And Loomis is kind of coming to the sheriff saying like, dude, like this guy is fucking, you know, and obviously, you know, this guy's a psycho and he's escaped, and you know, you need to protect your town. And Brackett's kind of very dismissive of it as well, but he still kind of goes to check it out and everything like that. But he's kind of like, this is Halloween, don't be scaring my town. And but it's kind of, you can see because when he finds the fucking tombstone missing, he's like, I have to go and check this shit out. So he brings him to investigate the house. We're not going to give a play-by-play, but he brings him to investigate the house. And this is kind of where, and this is where Loomis says, this guy is pure evil. I looked into his eyes and there's nothing there. His eyes are black. You know, he's painting the picture that this guy is actually a dangerous man. And Brackett's kind of just like, oh, whatever, but I'll patrol the streets anyway. But that night is obviously when Laurie is babysitting Tommy Doyle.
Yeah.
And basically, and Annie babysits, Lindsay? Is it Lindsay?
I think it's Lindsay.
Yeah, little Lindsay, yeah. Across the street, so they're basically in eye line of each other. And Michael follows them. But that's when Tommy sees Michael kill the dog, so he knows that this guy is real, and he's calling him the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And they're kind of just completely unaware of this. And obviously, without going too far in, there is a point where Loomis finds the abandoned psychiatric, the car from the hospital. And he knows, right, shit is real. This motherfucker's here. And it just, that's where it plays out. So without giving a step-by-step, we obviously see the kind of the stealth of Michael Myers and obviously the intelligence of him too.
Absolutely.
He's just going to terrify these fuckers, you know, as much as he possibly can until he gets to his main piece, which is, of course, his niece.
I love, there's one part, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, when he kills, what's that chap's name with the glasses?
Oh, I loved when he killed him and pinned him to the wall.
Yeah, but then he just tilts his head.
I love that.
Like what Kane does, you know?
Yeah, like a dog.
I just thought it was brilliant. And again, as I said, little nuances like that make a film for me. You know?
And even the little idea of him coming back then, having the smarts to put the sheet over him.
Yeah, that was cool, actually, yeah.
You know what I mean? That was super cool. And I mean, like, this is all creating, like, absolutely nightmarish scenes for people watching this at that time. And even for kids watching that now. Like, it's still a very, very creepy, scary movie. But as you said, it's all very psychological because what you can't see,
that's real horror.
Shadows.
It's real horror right there.
Yeah.
You can, and I mean, there is films I'd like us to talk about further down the line. And there's one which I'll talk to you about off camera in a minute or when we're finished. But like, there's films that I want to watch that are full of blood and guts and that I'm no interested in a sense, but I still want to watch them and talk about them.
Yeah, I'll watch any horror, man.
I
watch Scene movie.
Yeah, but these kind of films that we're talking about at the minute, for me, are real horrors. They don't age badly, they age well, and they don't rely on buckets of blood and disgust and shit, like, and you know, like you say, there's a narrative of creepiness there.
Yeah, it's like when you look at, you know, for wrestling fans out there, when they looked at The Undertaker when he first came in, this is very, very much in the vein of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
You know, he gets the coat hanger in the eye and like, motherfucker's still up. You know what I mean? He's stabbed. He's still up. And it's like, is this guy a zombie? Is he fucking, you know, is he Satan reincarnated? You know, you don't know what he is, but you do know that he's a bad man. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think we'd be remiss without talking about John Carpenter's ability within this, because we did mention at the start, his music plays a pivotal role. And like you say, there's no soundtrack here of any kind of big artist songs or anything like that. This is all work basically on the organs, keyboard, synth, piano, from John Carpenter himself. Talk about that, you being the music man.
Well, I mean, again, a really good horror movie.
The music man.
I'm the music man.
You're the music man.
Has a complete package. And I mean,
yeah,
you'll know the Halloween music by the first note. You will know the Jaws music by the first note. You will know not necessarily the music of Friday the 13th, but you'll know the all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So
The Exorcist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So every iconic horror film, has a very, very memorable musical either score or piece to it. And John Carpenter fits that mold perfectly. You know, he was able to I mean, when he made something beautiful almost, I mean, it's just, again, if
I'll give you a nice little kind of throwback to something that was very, very cool for me, just explaining that music, right? And I know you'll appreciate this. About before all this COVID shit happened and all that, I think about 3 years ago now, you probably remember better than me at this stage. I think it was about 3 years ago that myself and herself were over in Orlando. And we went over in October, so we were going to the Universal Studios for Halloween Horror Nights, which is just the most incredible thing that you could ever do. I recommend it to absolutely everybody. It's just the best thing of all time. But when you're getting to those big gates, to the Universal Studio gates, where you get in and see the park, it's like 7 p.m. So in Orlando, the sun is beautiful. It's set, it's still nice, kind of. It's going down, but it's nice. And all across the park, they have 3 songs playing. They had the Stranger Things music, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
And don't forget, the Stranger Things is almost a throwback to these.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is what this is. An homage, without a shadow of a doubt. But then they have the Halloween music playing. Ding, ding, and you're in the queue waiting. And like what that's doing psychologically and subconsciously is just building this, like, absolute fucking terrifying experience. And and when you hear it loud like that and experiencing it like that, you actually realize that what he created in 1978 was just groundbreaking in a lot of ways. He took everything that the likes of Hitchcock had done, and Tubular Bells with The Exorcist and all, and he just created something, as you said, absolute, and Jaws, to be fair, and just made it iconic. Just
Well, now Jaws, man. Just trip back a little bit. Jaws was John Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were.
But Spielberg knew what to put in there as well, though. You know what I mean? Spielberg knew what. How to, Spielberg knew what scenes to put in the music. Like, I mean, the opening scene of Jaws. Let's not forget, that's tension.
Absolutely.
And again, through the eyes of the shark.
Yes, absolutely. Let's not talk about Jaws, because that's an episode in its own. And I think down the line, sorry to interrupt you, Ian, I think we'll have some friends on. We'll have some friends on to talk about certain shows. We just wanted to get the first couple in under our belt, and but like getting other people in to discuss those kind of films with us, because like yourself, horror movies have a really big place in people's hearts. If they're horror fans, it's almost like metal fans. If they're a horror fan for life. If you're a metal fan, you're a metal fan for life, And
Absolutely.
It'll be great to get some of our friends who may be familiar to our viewers from our respective shows down the line. Like we get some dozen guests, we'll get some King Rose Cork guests, and have a royal discussion about some of these films, you know?
Oh, definitely. We will have like an almost like a court-like session on this. You know what I mean? And we will have dozens of guests on in the process. So sorry, I had to throw 2 puns in there that would just mesh keep close. But no, I mean, for me, I think you're 100% right. I think we won't spend too long on this episode because I think it's more about the atmosphere and what John Carpenter's done. And I think we are definitely. Yeah, and you know, for any body out there that hasn't seen Halloween, I don't know what you're doing listening to the show, but thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Please go and watch the movie because you need to.
Uncle Ian says so.
Yeah, you know, I'm giving you pearls here, guys. You know, but I think one of the things that, like, in closing with this movie is that it was probably, you know, it always lent itself to having a sequel. You know what I mean? So that was always going to happen. We'll talk about the sequel, as you say, when we talk about the franchise.
Yeah.
But John Carpenter is kind of like a one and done kind of guy. Do you know what I mean? He has a vision in his head, and that's what he wants. Boom, onto the next project.
Yeah.
And one of his next projects on this, you know, is going to be talked about on this show for sure, which is probably one of my favorite horrors of all time, In the Fog. So that will come down. That will definitely come down the line.
Absolutely.
For sure. For sure.
Let me throw something at you in before we, as you say, wrap up or whatever. The remakes by Rob Zombie. What would your take?
You know, it's funny, right? I'm going to be honest here, because I can be fickle when I need to be, because I think we all can be as humans. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether we're sports fans or whether we're movie fans, we can be fickle and we can be drawn into certain things and going, oh, I like that. But then when you hear a different narrative on it, you're like, oh shit, maybe that makes sense. I don't like that so much anymore. I mean, I liked what Rob Zombie was trying to do and put a bit of context behind the character.
Yeah.
When I first saw the Halloween remake, but then when I heard kind of John Carpenter's kind of like, fuck off, Rob, kind of outtake, he hated it, and I kind of then saw where John Carpenter was coming from, because I was like, this isn't really Rob Zombie's to make, you know what I mean?
No.
Because you're only taking an interpretation of what you saw, and then you're trying to make it your own and make a book off the back of what someone better than you did. And I mean, I don't think, I have all the respect in the world for Rob Zombie, so that's not a dig or a slight on him in any way, shape, or form. I think he's made his own great original movies. You know what I mean? I love The Devil's Rejects, and I love, you know, House of a Thousand Corpses. But I think what he did was he tried to cash in on something that was not his idea. At the time, I respected the idea, but then when I realized that John didn't, I was like, right, well, I'm with John then. Do you know what I mean? Because that's his baby.
Yes.
Let
me just say 3 words for you there. I hate remakes. That should be a T-shirt for me. I hate remakes.
Yeah, the people that made the Fog remake should be shot.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And I don't mean physically, but like metaphorically, they should be shot down. Any ideas that they come up with ever again. Yeah, I'm not a fan now, and to think of it now, I don't like the second one either. And then obviously Friday the 13th, or no, so not Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street. We talked about that being music that we should know. Yes. You know, the remake of that as well wasn't great. I know that wasn't him, but you know, it's the same. I'm not a remake guy.
No, me either. It's very hard to do a good remake of something, and if you do a bad remake,
it can't be done.
It sticks with you, you know.
It can't really be done unless it's a remake of a movie that wasn't really that good to begin with, that you don't really think of, and then they remake it in a broader context, and then you've seen it for the first time. That can happen. That's happened.
I think one good example of I'll give you 2 good examples of remakes that I feel. One is Cape Fear with Robert De Niro.
Hell yeah.
Right? And then the second one is The Fly with Jeff Goldblum.
Witcher.
Yeah.
See, 2 hearts beat as one on this show, and that's kind of because I would agree with both of those assessments, because I think the original Fly, you know, although it was pretty cool, Vincent Price was part of that, obviously.
Yeah.
The original one, yeah. Like it was good, but I mean, I definitely think that the remake of The Fly was fucking awesome. I mean, that's
it was better than the original.
Yeah, that's a movie we can definitely look at for sure down the line as well. I thought Jeff Goldblum was awesome in that. But to close up on Halloween, I think it leaves a lot of kind of attempted. Let me get this wording right. It leaves a lot of attempted kind of masked psycho killers in its stead, and it created off the back of it so many, along with Jason, of course, Jason Voorhees. I think in their own right they are the two. They'll never be matched.
They're the heavyweights, yeah.
But in saying that, it created, if you're a massive horror fan and a massive fan of this is where I create the nostalgia for all you young kids, and if you're a fan of the video shop, the video store like we used to be, it created tons of B, C, D, and even E-list movies that had tried to replicate it, like with Sleepaway Camp and all these kind of things, you know what I mean? That were really, really cool movies if you're a proper horror buff. So like I thank them for that. Because there is some great ones that are like almost so bad that you have to see them. Yeah. But yet they're really good because you find you're just, because I think you yourself and myself, we have the ability to just shut down for the hour and a half or the hour and 20 minutes that some of these terrible movies are. Yeah. And just enjoy them for what they are. You know what I mean?
You have to. It's all. I mean, it's like is it Night of the Living Dead with the Tar Man in it? I think it's Night of the Living Dead, I think. But anyway, it's the one with Tarman who's in it, and it's just totally wacky. It's almost like a comedy, but some of it is just, it's hilarious, you know. But like that, you leave your brain at the door, and you just enjoy it, you know. Horror movies nowadays. Sorry, again, I keep interrupting you. Sorry. Horror movies. No, you're not. Horror movies nowadays are trying to be too serious. They're trying to be too disgusting, you know. Give us less, which will be more in the end, you know.
Yeah, like there's been some decent ones out there. I mean, obviously Blumhouse have had their moments, you know what I mean, where they've come out with some good stuff, like Insidious, the first one, stuff like that were pretty cool, which we will talk about them because fans do want to hear them. You know, these are important movies. You know, when we get into the noughties and all that, and the tens, these are movies that people want to hear us talk about, and we will talk about some of them, but we'll give our honest opinion on everything as well. But when it comes to this particular movie in 1978 in Halloween, this is a masterpiece of horror and a masterpiece of tension, and just a masterpiece in general that is still timeless in 2020.
And tell me, Are we gonna give it a few slabs of me?
Hell yeah.
Right, go on. Or will I go first this time?
5 out of 5 for me.
Right. Well, I was gonna give a 4. Again, I love it. Absolutely love it. I love everything about it. There's nothing the only thing, do you know what I forgot to say to you? The thing
you'll notice that I'm a lot more generous than your Uncle Woe here. Yes. You'll notice that as the shows go on.
Oh yes. I mean, come on, Werewolf is possibly one of my top 2 horror films, and I still only gave a 4. But this is 4.
You gotta make this man breakfast if you want to get into his heart.
Hey, I'm still accepting, you know.
Oh no.
What I thought was annoying about this, if you remember, I'm always going to do this from now on. I'll give you one piece of the film that annoyed me, and I will do that in every episode. Okay. So the thing that annoyed me in this film was when Laurie had the knife. There was 2 different parts when she stabbed him, and she drops the knife in front of him both times. You know. Now I know she was just like, "What are you doing? Just bring the bloody knife with you." You know,
I'm laughing at that because Rachel says the same thing the last time we watched it, and I was like, all you logical fuckers, piss off. This is why I give the extra slab. This is going to be perfect. This is gonna be perfect because I'm like you weren't there. You drop it too.
Right, well, listen,
but it makes sense though.
It does.
Makes sense.
So let's kind of meet at the middle here, right? Because we kind of have to give it a 1 score, I think, between the two of us. So we go 4.5.
4.5 then, because if I give it a 5 and you're giving it a 4, I think 4.5 is probably fair.
Sounds good to me.
Because and we both gave the last one 4. We both gave American Werewolf 4.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. We'll have to look back on these now in 12 months in the first season, and we'll go like what kind of made the cut, what got the most, and what was kind of on a level
leaderboard. Yeah, or a price list.
So obviously that. Yeah. So Carol? I mean, let's put you on the spot here and let the people know to build the suspense. What are you thinking next week? I think I know what you're going with, but why don't?
Well, we'll see. You know, I myself and our production manager, our executive producer Arlene, we've done a little bit of research, and I personally, and I think you were with me on this. We want to shake things up a little bit every couple of weeks. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple of stories from Irish history or horror, and we're just going to go.
Celtic folklore.
Yeah, and we're going to just talk about them in our own way. And people who are Irish people may or may not have heard about them, but we're going to just have a chat about them, and it just breaks up things a little bit from horror movies to possibly real life things or whatever. So it could be, we won't say what it is, but we will have a very, very interesting show for you next week. That's what I can guarantee you that. You know, so hopefully you stick with us. And they will already. I know that next week's show is going to be really cool, and we're working on some cool stuff in the background. And like I say, there is no country on the planet, in my opinion, that has more depth when it comes to the world of folklore and limericks and scary, scary spooks in the night than the land of Ireland and the history that we have. So. Yeah, I think that's going to be something really cool to keep an eye on. And I want to say, for me, Ian and Dynamo Kelly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you all join us once again for the second episode of the On The Slab Horror Show. This show is going to be something